So I have a 23-year-old daughter, and she asked me who I was going to interview for the podcast most recently. And I said, Ed Duffey. She said, that name sounds kind of familiar. And I said, he's the guy on Instagram that finds rings with his metal detector. And she knew exactly who I was talking about. This guy is turning into kind of a local legend, and he's very humble, very kind. But he has an Instagram account. It's called OBX_Ed. OBX_Ed. He's also known as Edward Duffey. He's a local real estate agent. And on his Instagram account, which he uses to promote real estate, he also shares his stories of finding people's lost rings or jewelry at the beach or anywhere, frankly, on the Outer Banks. So he's turned into quite the talented gentleman, and he kind of does it he obviously enjoys helping people, and I admire that. And we had a great talk, and hopefully you will enjoy it as well. And I tell you what, he's got me excited to dust off my metal detector and get out on the beach and start tinkering around a little bit. I've never really found anything of great value, but he gets out there a couple days a week, and he just keeps finding really cool stuff. So tune in, sit back, relax, and listen to Ed Duffey and I talk about his treasures on the Outer Banks, which happens to be the name of the show.
Just random things. Once in a while you will find something and you don't know what it is. I found something a couple weeks ago that I think is an ancient coin.
Wow.
It's a cut. And I think it's older than like Spanish coins. I think It might be, who knows what. But it's got sort of like the nape of somebody's neck on it that I can make out. And that's about all I can see on it.
Huh. Yeah, I could, I told you about the Walking Liberty coin. I couldn't make it out on the beach. I had to, take a picture, zoom it in really good. And,
right.
And even then I was kind of, I had to go online and figure out what it was because I had never seen one before.
Well, silver corrodes pretty well, and after time it'll turn black. And I found some jewelry that I'll tumble it, and other times I'll actually use electrolysis to try to get the corrosion off.
Really? Okay. Yeah. You got your own laboratory there. And so, do you call it treasure hunting? Do you call it metal detecting?
I metal detect, and really what I enjoy doing, and the thing I live for, is actually to find people's lost items.
Nice.
Because the reaction, I'm trying to get into using a GoPro. I have one, and I've used it once in a while, but the reaction when people find their thing that they thought was lost forever is priceless.
Right.
It's priceless.
Absolutely. How many people do you think you've helped so far?
This year probably about 30. Last year maybe a little more than that, 35 or 40.
Wow.
And
mostly in the summertime?
Mostly in the summertime.
Yeah, because they're playing in the water.
Almost always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been metal detecting?
I've been doing metal detecting off and on for probably 10 years, but I didn't really get serious about it until about 3 years ago is when I started this to find people's valuables for them. Right. And the person I followed is actually gig master up in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And he does the same thing, so I thought that'd be something I could do here in my retirement and help people out.
Right. And do you just go out every day for fun, or you just wait for the phone call?
In the winter, I maybe go out twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. In the summer, I'm out almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're sounds like you're looking for more recently lost stuff, not so much historically lost stuff.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. And I remember I read one of your posts. You're on Instagram, is that right?
Yes. I'm on
Are you
Instagram.
also Twitter or anything else, or
no,
just Instagram?
Not Twitter. Facebook. I have a page on Facebook, OBX Ed Lost Items.
Okay.
And on Instagram, it's really a real estate page.
Right.
But right. But I post these things on there as well.
Right. Yeah. That's where I know you from, and I've seen some of your stuff. And I remember one time you mentioned that people probably aren't going to be able to find stuff using rental metal detecting equipment because it's too basic.
Right.
So you have something a little higher level.
Yeah, I used to have a Mine Lab Equinox, which was the best you could buy at the time, and not really the best, but it's probably the best low-priced metal detector. And this year, XP came out with one called the Deus 2, so I ran out and bought that just to see if it would work.
Right.
And it's almost like learning a foreign language because I think there's 14 programs on the Deus 2. Each program gives you something different for different locations. And you learn the sounds. Each metal makes a different sound, and each item makes a different sound. So you might find a piece of silver that's not a coin, and it'll make maybe a longer sound. I don't know how to explain that, but you can actually, after you use it for a while, it's almost like, oh yeah, that's a nickel.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in one of your posts that, or actually you were talking to me the other day or something like that. You picked up steel or something like that.
Right.
Now, why would you pick up steel?
Well, I do that all the time, actually. There's a lot of areas, I would say most areas in the Outer Banks has a lot of, if you go out right here in your canal, you probably have a lot of metal in the water. And the reason for that is there's people that have been here years and years before you, and there's been boats go by and probably engines in the water and probably rings and who knows what, but there'll be a lot. Construction material.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. A lot of construction
Yeah, I get
waste.
a lot of that. And so the other day I was out in the Sound looking for a gold ring with diamonds, and it was hard to really look for it because there was so much of that other material. Yeah. And the other material makes a low tone. It's sort of like boom.
Right.
And if you hit gold or silver, it'll go dee. So it's a big difference, but sometimes it will mask. One will mask the other.
Right. I know when I've played with my metal detector, sometimes if I'm in very shallow water, it seems to give off some weird bounce back or something like that. Is that normal, or is that hard to say because you don't know my piece of equipment?
Yeah, it's hard to say without knowing the detector, but in general, like if I get in deep water, if it's deeper than, say, 6 inches, I might change it to diving mode because it will take care of, you'll have mineralization going by in the waves or in the water. Right. And your detector will pick up on that.
Right. Okay. And so how many, let's see, what's any amazing stories you have from just finding stuff, or are they all kind of amazing?
Each one has its own story, and
Sure.
actually I'm thinking about putting all the little stories together and making a book.
Sure.
Probably one of the best ones was last year in Nag's Head, and the gentleman called me and said his fiance had lost her ring. And he had just given it to her about 2 days prior.
Right.
And so I went out there and found the ring pretty quick. And I decided to give it back to him. I said, since this was yours and you gave it to her a couple days ago, I'm going to give it back to you and you can do what you want with it. And of course, he knelt there on the beach and proposed all over again. And that, I would say that's the best story.
Yeah.
It's like fairy tale. And she accepted again, and they kissed.
Right.
And I got lots of pictures of it.
Very cool. And so what's the longest period between the day they lost it and the day you found it?
Actually, that is the one I just found.
Really?
It was 7 days.
Wow. Above the tide line?
That was long. No, it was in the water,
no.
But it was in the Sound, which is
so the tide
better.
is minimal. Yeah.
Right. But that one was 7 days. The longest in the ocean was 6 days.
Wow.
And it's kind of interesting story because the person called me after they had left the Outer Banks. And they sent me pictures of where they were staying, and they sent me pictures of the beach, everything. They probably sent me 20 pictures.
Yeah.
And so I went up there probably about 5 days after they lost it. And the first day I didn't find a thing. And it was very close to the South Corolla parking area.
Yeah.
Where the fire station is.
Right.
So I went in there, and that was last year, and I didn't find a thing. And it was late in the year like this. And the second day I was really concerned because the surf was starting to come up. It was probably a lot like we have right now. And I knew a storm was coming in. And I thought I'd spend some extra time, so I spent time doing it. And I did every area that I thought it could be dry sand and in the water. They thought they lost it in the water. And as the surf came in, and I was probably about less than knee deep.
Yeah.
I saw the ring go by.
No way.
I saw the ring go by. I didn't even detect it. I saw the ring go by in the wash as it was going back and forth. And I put my coil over it just to hold it.
Yeah.
And when the water went back, I scanned. It was there. I scooped. I found the ring in 6 days, but I didn't really find it by detecting.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone on a search for somebody's personal stuff and found something else that was almost equally surprising or incredible?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I've been in Spindrift. I was looking for...
Southern Shores or...
No. Corolla.
Okay, yeah.
I was looking for a gentleman's wife's engagement ring. And before I found the engagement ring, I found another ring. It was a men's ring. And I continued on, and I found his ring. That was one of the first I found last year. I found his ring. And what was incredible about this is I returned his ring, and I got a call not long after that and said, "Hey, I lost my ring." And I said, "Where?" Spindrift. It was the ring I already found. No. So I found it before they called me.
You're clairvoyant. You knew that was coming.
I'm a big believer in faith.
Sure.
And I think some things just happen.
That's good.
I think it's just sometimes I pray. Almost every time, unless I forget about it.
Right.
And sometimes I can't find what I'm looking for, and I pray. And no, I would have to say I don't find everything. Far from it.
That'd be pretty amazing if you did. But yeah.
If you lose your ring on the beach, and you call me within a week, I'll probably find it.
That's funny.
If you lose it in the water, there are some times it's gone right away.
Sure.
Yeah,
with all the movement and everything. If somebody wanted to get into this hobby, what would you recommend?
Well, there's a lot of people in the Outer Banks. There's another guy that actually has a Facebook site similar to mine, and I've met him actually because sometimes people will call two people and say, "Hey, I have a free-for-all for this," and go look for it. So I don't normally do that. If he's there, I forget his first name, but I walked up a couple weeks ago, actually, and he was there looking for it, and I said, "Hey, I'm Ed," introduced myself. He knew me from Facebook. I knew him. I said, "Well, it looks like you got this under control," and he said, "Yeah, I've covered all this area and all this area." So I said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And he said, I don't think it's here. So I actually left, and but there's that guy, and there's another guy, and there's a couple guys I know that don't return it.
Right, I've heard of some of these people.
So you have to be careful. If you lose an item, you don't necessarily want to post it on Facebook.
Right, as a free-for-all.
Yeah, for several reasons. There are metal detectors all the way across the state that will make a trip here if they know there's some gold in the water. And I think that happened a couple weeks ago. Somebody actually did that, and they posted it. And within minutes, that post was shared in Western North Carolina.
Wow.
So, and I looked for that item, I looked for that item, and I never found it.
Right. I do recall, and maybe you recall this, 5-10 years ago, somebody found a Spanish medallion or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the speculation arose, well, if there's one, there's more. And, and people started, a few of them, I guess, started hunting around, but I don't think anybody ever really came up with anything. Maybe somebody found a second piece. Did you hear about this story at all?
I didn't.
Okay. It goes back a few years, at least 5, maybe 10. So if you wanted to get into this hobby, what kind of, would you recommend any equipment?
Sure. I think the cheapest way you can get into it right now and be good on the beach here is probably a Mine Lab Equinox 600. Mm-hmm. It almost does everything the 800 does, and it is much cheaper. And right now, the Mine Lab equipment is selling for less because the XPs came out and everybody's buying them. But it's a really good machine. The only flaw I had with that machine is if I took it in the water, it would leak.
Gotcha.
And you don't want to have a leaky machine and then somebody call you to find a ring. So for that reason, I always keep 2. I have a primary and a backup.
Right. And so surely you have some personal treasures that you found, that you couldn't find the owners of?
Surely. Yeah, I have a ring. I don't know what it's called. The little cushioning things that you put a lot of rings in. So I have probably about 75.
75 rings.
That I haven't. And I would say most of the men's rings are probably tungsten. Like this one right here I found. I wear it. And that's tungsten. And I just like it because it's nice. But I will post things like last week I posted that I found a men's ring up at the Corolla Village Road, real close to there. And it had a date in it, and the date was actually this year, so somebody got married this year and lost the ring.
Oh, no.
So I posted that one on OBX Locals, left it there for about 2 weeks.
Huh. And so have you kept a log with all these lost pieces to okay, I found this one in Kitty Hawk, I found this one in Gillivis?
I'm an Excel nerd, so I do that, right?
Okay.
So I have a contract I have people sign. It's not about money, but it's about telling the story and being able to publish,
and now it's your story. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. And so the 2 things on that contract says, number 1, I'm not responsible if my scoop hits it and then damages it.
Sure.
Maybe more than 2. If I find something else, like I did that one time, that's mine, not theirs.
Right.
Other than the item I'm looking for. And the other thing is I can publish their story, complete with pictures. And that's Facebook, Instagram, or the book I'm thinking about writing.
Right. Are you working for money?
That's a great question. I used to.
Mm-hmm.
I used to charge a call-out fee to come out, and I changed because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to prevent anybody from finding their item because they didn't have the cash on them.
Sure.
So what I do now is it doesn't matter if you're in Hatteras or you're in Corova, although I don't like to go up there. I hate driving up there. Right. But I will come look for your item for nothing. Okay. And I rely on people's generosity. I'll tell them up front, I drive a truck. Trucks take a lot of gas. So I'm hoping that you will give me something for my gas. I never tell them what. Sure. I never say, hey, I need $50 or I need 20. Right. So I never tell them what. And I'm hoping if I find your item, there might be some type of reward. And people, I would say almost always, I've only had maybe 2 or 3 people that didn't give me anything. And I'm okay with that.
Sure.
There was a gentleman I found a ring and a necklace for. And he just, you could tell he didn't have it.
Right.
And I'm okay with that, because that's why I'm doing the whole thing. I mentioned that I was a believer. I like to give back.
Sure, a little karma.
Whatever I can do for somebody.
I was in Orlando a couple years ago, and I had a long walk in 100-degree heat, and there was a rickshaw guy. And I'm thinking, well, this has got to be walking in the heat. So let me see what he charges. So I ask him, he's like, all I take is generous donations, or a generous tip, I think is what he called it. I said to myself, well, that's fair. I can, and I think I gave him $20 for probably 10 minutes of work. What I'm thinking? If he gets a couple, several of those a day, he's probably doing pretty good. So, sometimes I think there's some goodwill to that.
Well, some people, like earlier this year, I found the 4-carat blue sapphire on platinum, and the lady was just so thrilled. I thought she was going to die. She fell down like she was shot when I found it. And I don't know, she was just so thrilled. And she was also very generous.
Nice.
So
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I would expect it more times than not. So, I'm sure the really good times outweigh the really bad times.
That's right.
And it's all attitude. It's all about, expectations and positive attitude. So we talked about your personal treasures. Anything historical, maybe non-jewelry related or anything like that you found that's kind of interesting?
I found very little historical items, and I think it's because probably a combination of the fact that the beach is always changing here. Right. So nothing is going to stay out there very long. And there's a lot of detectorists out there. Yeah. So probably the oldest thing I found, I don't even really understand what it is. It's a replica of a 1901 $10 gold piece. So I say replica, it's about the size, less than the size of a business card. Right. But it's got detail of everything on that gold piece, including the serial number. Huh. It's serialized. Huh. But it's made out of, I think it's made out of copper. And it could have been a souvenir maybe sold here on the Outer Banks in the early, say, 30s or 40s. Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's probably the oldest item. I have a couple rings that look a little bit antique. But it's really hard to tell without a date.
Are they pretty worn out?
One of them's silver and it has a stone in it, and it's really beautiful. It's not worn out at all, but just the way the silver's done, it's like filigreed, a lot of work in it. Oh yeah. So I just think it's old, but I could be completely wrong.
Right. Right. And do you take this to jewelry stores at all, just out of curiosity sometimes?
Not typically. Every once in a while I'll take it to either Creative Jewelers or Gale, and but not very often. Yeah. Just once in a while. If something is really, like I found a pretty nice ring that had been buried for a long time. It was on a path up to a hotel. And I thought it could have been Alexandrite, which is a stone. It's a birthstone for June. Okay. And it's pretty expensive if you get natural Alexandrite. But it turned out to be amethyst. Right. Still a beautiful stone and ring. And I had the jeweler actually clean it up, and it was missing some marcasite in it, which sort of looks like small diamonds. Okay. And the jeweler cleaned it up, gave it back to me, and I gave it to my wife. Right. Yeah.
She a big fan of your hobby?
I can't tell you how many rings my wife has. She came out a couple of days ago and said, look, and she had like 12 rings. These are the ones I wear. I didn't even know she had them. I lost track.
That's funny. You have so much jewelry, you've lost track. Yeah. What was I just going to say? Oh, just for the listeners and anybody who cares, I am married. I do have a wedding band. I don't wear it in the summertime because I'm in the water a lot. And every time I take on and take off and put on a ring, it's a chance for me to lose it, or if I'm have to jump in the water. I used to be in water sports for 25 years, and I just realized it's going to be a lot safer. So I stow it for about 6-7 months in the summertime, and in the wintertime I break it out.
I put mine in my truck console when I'm normally on the beach, and I don't do it because I want to pick up chicks. I do it because I have a pinpointer that you're probably familiar with. It's like a little wand they use in airports.
Okay, yeah.
So I use that pinpointer on very small items. If I'm detecting and I can't see the item, maybe it'll fall through my scoop, I'll use the pinpointer to find it. So very small gold beads or something like that.
Okay.
So that's why I do it. If I pick up a bunch of sand with my left hand, which is what I typically do, then I go like this. If I've got my ring on, it'll go off every time.
Right.
So
Right.
I am very good at finding Spanish reals that are fake.
Where do they come
There's
from?
a lot of those out there.
They're falling off bathing suits or something?
I don't, I think some of the shops sell them for kids.
Right.
So I've found, or at least I think they're all fake. I'm pretty sure they are.
What's a real look like? I should know this.
It's got the cross in it, and it's round, and it's about that big. There's silver ones, and there are kind of gold ones as well.
What do you see? This was the question I was thinking of. What do you see salt water doing to like gold and silver over time?
Silver, it'll turn it black very quickly. It'll, matter of fact, silver can be in the ground for a month and be black. It just depends on where it's at.
Sure.
And how wet it is. Gold, if it's good gold, it stays beautiful.
Is that right?
Yeah. There's very little corrosion on gold. The other thing I notice is if I find a penny and it's prior to 1984, it'll look just like a penny. It'll look like it just fell out of somebody's pocket.
Oh, okay.
But if I find a modern penny, they're mostly zinc.
Right.
And the ocean will corrode those in a matter of days, weeks.
Turn greenish or blackish?
They turn green, black, and they dissolve. They actually, there'll be small pieces of pennies.
Right. Where's your? Well, I shouldn't. I was going to ask you.
Where's
what's your
my
favorite place
spot?
to hunt? But we don't know if we want to say that.
It's everybody knows it's where people congregate the most.
Yeah.
So it's around piers and things like that. But you never know. It could be a place like I don't know, Lillian or someplace where people don't hang out as much.
Right. What's the most annoying trash that you find?
Bottle caps.
Bottle
Beer
caps.
bottle caps. And what's really annoying about them is beer bottle caps will ring up somewhere around 64 and 65. And so did that gold ring I found the other day. It was 64. Difference in tone, big difference in tone. You can actually, because the bottle caps have the little edges, you can hear that. It's like a zzz.
Is that right?
Yeah. And whereas the ring will have a solid tone.
Are you wearing headphones?
I try not to, especially in the summer because my ears sweat.
Yeah, right.
But most of the time you'll see me and the XP has a puck that is attached. It's all wireless, so the coil is wireless, the controller is wireless, and the earphone driver is wireless. And most of the time I will have that puck attached to my shirt with little clips and Apple iPhone.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess that helps you dial into the sounds and
It
all that
does.
good stuff, right?
Yeah. No, if I know I'm going in water, my headphones are waterproof, so I'll go in water.
And because it's wireless, you could put the coil underwater without too much problems. Unless
Not true.
sealed.
What you have with the XP is you actually have a wire that runs up to the controller, and it's not what you think. It's not a wire that goes inside. It's a waveguide. So it'll actually pick up the signal down there and transfer it to the controller.
Okay.
So it's still wireless, and it doesn't use that wire unless you're deeper than maybe 6 inches.
Okay.
And personally, I try not to get in water. If I know somebody lost, like a couple years ago up at Corolla Light, there was a lady that lost a big diamond ring. And she called me, and I was in the water for probably 4 hours, and
right.
pretty good surf, and never found it. So I try not to do that. I try not to go any deeper than knee deep because I don't want to lose myself or my equipment. But I have gone in at times. And I just wanted to mention what to do if you lose your item.
Okay.
Because this happens to me so often. Number one, don't post it on Facebook because somebody will go out there and get it and take it to a pawn shop.
Right.
Number two, try to refrain from digging for it because, and I know you want to do that, you want to find it, but it'll make it go deeper.
Right.
I mean, sand is, they say quicksand for a reason.
Right.
It just keeps, especially if it's a gold or silver, it wants to go deeper.
Yeah.
And the other thing is try to take a picture, or on your iPhone you can do, and Android you can do a pinpoint.
That's right.
Drop a pin. So, and then the last but not least, call somebody as soon as possible because the longer it's on the beach, the more likely you won't get it back.
Yeah.
A redfish could eat it. A bird could take it. Another detector person could take it.
Yeah.
There's all kind of
Yeah.
things.
The pin drop, that's a good one. That makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Pin drop. I've had actually in 3 years, I've had one person do that.
Right. All this technology, we forget that we have it.
I know. You got the computer in your pocket.
So let me back up a little bit. So where did you come from?
Well, that's a great question.
Oh boy.
So I retired I lived up in Suffolk.
Okay, not too far away.
I worked at the shipyard just at the very end of my career at Newport News. And before that, I was actually a teacher.
Okay.
I taught at Newport News and also at Hampton.
Hampton County, City? Or?
City.
Yeah.
Hampton City Schools. I taught at Sims Middle School. I was a middle school math teacher.
Man.
Yeah.
That's and that can be a tough neighborhood from time to time.
Yeah. In Newport News, I taught at trying to think Huntington Middle School, which they've closed down, and that's in a really rough area. And 1 year, I've had children, school-age children, that have been shot, and it's horrendous. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
But you know, that profession is very demanding, but it's also very rewarding.
Sure.
Because when you have people, I think that age group is an age where people decide. They decide what they're going to be and what they're going to do. And
right.
They're going to go this way or they're going to... And to be able to influence people is good.
Sure. Yeah. I used to be a teacher, and I know exactly what you're saying.
Yep. What did you teach?
Physical education.
Okay. I can tell you're in good shape.
I got to lose some weight, but yeah. Three years of...
Don't we all?
3 years of private school, 3 years of public school. And then you live in Kitty Hawk. You're probably familiar with the Kitty Hawk United Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. They have a wonderful preschool there. My kids went to the preschool. And I found a way to haggle or negotiate tuition by being a volunteer PE teacher there. And then when my kids graduated, I just stayed on. I was there for 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
Just as one day a week, I'd go in, run around with the kids for 3 hours. And it was fun. Good fun. You know?
Yep.
And the funny thing is now I'm the head lacrosse coach at First Flight High School. And there's, probably half a dozen kids on the team that I remember when they were 3 and 4 years old in preschool. So you stick around the community long enough, you meet a few people,
That's right.
including the kids, which has been good. That was a great talk. Would you like to talk about or promote? Here's your chance to promote anything. It could be, the SPCA. It could be your real estate business, your wife's real estate business.
I would like to promote the fact that there's too much plastic on the beach.
Good point.
Every time I volunteer out at the aquarium sometimes, and I'll be the person that stands in the Star Center, and I'll tell the people about the turtles and stuff. Mm-hmm. But every time I see a young person go through there, I'll say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you grow up? And I'll ask them, and every once in a while I'll hear about engineer. I'll be an engineer, and I'll say, I need you to engineer something for me. Plastic that's really, really strong, but dissolves in 2 weeks if it goes in the ocean.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize with turtles, they if they ingest plastic, if they see a bottle cap, they think shrimp, I'm eating it. Mm-hmm. If they see a plastic bag, they think jellyfish, I'm eating it. And their internal organs are made in such a way where they can't belch it back up. Mm-hmm. And they're made that way because they get their water from their food, and they have to belch up the salt water. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that. And so the plastic is a deadly trap for them.
Right.
And so, I'd like to promote that. Of course, I would like to selflessly promote my real estate business as well. I work for Beach Realty and Kitty Hawk, and they're a fantastic organization, been in business for 52 years. And the premier realty firm in the Outer Banks.
Nice. Yeah. Good to hear. And how has real estate been for you the last couple of years?
Last year was the best year we ever had. Mm-hmm. And, it's like a feeding frenzy. Everybody found out they could work from home. Yeah. And if you got a choice of working from Philadelphia or working from the Outer Banks, what are you going to pick?
Yep.
So a lot of people moved in last year. This year has slowed down. Of course, the rates are higher right now. But there's something in real estate right now that you couldn't get 6 months ago, and that's a deal. There are some deals out there right now.
It's starting to balance out a little bit.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a house, now might be a good time for you.
Right.
But anyway, I enjoy real estate. I enjoy working with the turtles, and I enjoy ring finding. That's me in a nutshell.
The big three right there.
That's it.
Excellent. No, that's good to hear. Well, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I think that was a great talk.
Enjoyed being here. Thank you for asking.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I hope you enjoyed these stories. I think the Outer Banks is a special place, and sharing it with other people who love the Outer Banks is a real privilege for me. If you have a specific topic you'd like to hear or a specific person, please leave a note in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Remember, if you want to find treasure on the Outer Banks, just talk to a local.